Alrighty, everybody. We are here. It is STG Weekly, episode 210, covering Operation Ragnarok, or Z-Blade is the other name for it. And, yep, it's going to be an NMK shooter from 1994. Only NMK shooter on the NeoGeo. And we will be taking a look at a couple of replays for this. Of course, I'm Aquas. I'll be hosting the show and being co-hosted as well by ggmaximo.
Everybody.
Yep. And we were going to have Prickly Angler as a guest, but something came up and he's not able to attend right now. But he might still show up, so if he does, that'd be cool. But thankfully, Maximo actually knows the game pretty well, so we're going to just go forward with the episode.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was gonna get started and just say I originally was introduced to this game by Prickly because probably for the longest time, like I've been in this scene for a long time, and like even on the Strauss forum back in the day, they had like a scoreboard topic where a couple people at like the old casino arcade in London did like some runs maybe like 11 and 12 years ago, and then nobody else really played it outside of that, with a lot of people citing the whole milking aspect of this game and some of the soundtrack choices to be unappealing to them. So for a long time, no one really took it very seriously. And then a couple of years ago, Prickly decided to start playing the game and then basically got a clear with every single shot type of the game. It's kind of a fun personal goal, and just wanting to understand, you know, how this game mechanically works, what shot types work, and like what configurations you can do to make up for shortcomings of different shots that you have with your characters. And then kind of from there, I saw what he was doing, and it kind of got me thinking a little bit about, you know, why not try this out for myself? And then I got the clear pretty quickly, and then after that I was looking around at some old score I had done with the scoring shot type for Uncle Beard. Kind of from there, it just kind of escalated into researching, like, you know, what are the most optimal milks. And for some people it might be like, that's kind of boring, but to me that ended up being pretty mechanically interesting. And over time I basically got to the point where I realized, like, oh crap, like I could actually beat the community record if I just do like this one suicide here and just optimize milks pretty early on in the game, as well as a little bit later for like the final boss. And after fast forward like maybe a couple months later, I was able to get like 6.07 on my one of my runs. And after that, I think my PB is like 6.2. But yeah, it's been an interesting road just trying to figure out, you know, what exactly is going on with this game. And we'll kind of be going into that first with a survival-oriented run from Prickly himself, using the old grizzled ward veteran Uncle Beard with the 3-way anti-air missile and 2-way shots with auto fire.
Right. Yeah. Good name, Uncle Beard. But yeah, like. So yeah, the you have the selectable ships, but the notable thing is you have 3 different weapon upgrades that you use simultaneously. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So the way it works, when you put in a credit, after the whole demo, you get 3 choices of characters. So you can either pick Uncle Beard, who has a low speed, Miss Charlotte, who has medium speed, and Swift Arnold, who has a high speed. When you pick each character, Swift Arnold gets 10 tick points per shot that hits any sort of enemy, ground, immobile object. Miss Charlotte gets 30 points for each tick point. And then Uncle Beard not only gets 50 tick points per shot that connects, but also gets an extra bomb for every life. So in essence, even before you pick any of these other shot types, there's only one character to basically pick, which is Uncle Beard, because of just the survival and scoring advantage. He's got them both, and the other 2 just don't have them unless you just want to try them out and for yourself. when you pick a character, then you get to select your front-facing main shot, which can be a 3-way spread shot, a wave shot that's kind of like the red DNA shot in R-Type, and you have like a vertical shot which fires these like pink beams upwards, downwards, and straight ahead. Then for your missile configurations, you have either homing missiles that fire in front and home onto the nearest enemy, air-to-surface missiles, which are these fat missiles that basically spread upwards to the upper left and right, and you have anti-air missiles, which is like at first a small string of missiles that fire forward and then expands to 2 sets of missiles that fire forward. And then for your rear shot, you have a 2-way shot that aims behind you, a wave shot, which is kind of the same thing as the main wave shot with the DNA like R-Type influence that fires backwards, or you can have these 2 twin shots that fire behind you.
Yeah, is it pretty easy to pick the weapons? I mean, that's kind of a lot to pick from.
I think it's a little confusing at first because from my understanding, this is also a game that does not have internal auto-fire built in, so when trying to get the ropes of this and figuring out like what's the best, it might be a little confusing figuring out like what's best and also like what you feel most comfortable with your play style to damage stuff aggressively, because certain shot types are a lot easier to get grips with versus others. Like I think in my experience it was the vertical shot, air-to-surface missiles, and then like the twin configuration that is the easiest for survival in my experience. Some people just like to go straight up and use the scoring configuration, which is double wave for front and rear shot as well as air-to-surface missiles. But it's more just like figuring out like what gives you the most coverage and how does it enable you to survive for a longer period of time. Right. So I feel like vertical AS and twin is kind of the way to go when you're starting out. And I feel like if Prickly were here, he would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, right now we're actually looking at the scoring run we'll be watching later. We're going to watch the survival run first, but you see the 2-wave attacks and then the missiles going on there. But yeah, you're saying, though, depending on what characters you pick, you can get different tick point rewards for shooting stuff, and you actually can get score extends as well, right?
Yeah, so there are 3 score-based extends. The first one is at 200,000 points, second is at 800,000 points, and the third one is at 2 million. So with Uncle Beard, with the amount of tick points he gets, it's pretty easy to get all the score-based extends, but with the other characters, it becomes a little bit harder to like a lot harder if you pick Swift Arnold, because it forces you to basically do a lot more tick point milking to meet that last 2 million point threshold of Swift Arnold, in my experience.
Okay. Well, I'd like to get into these replays since we do have like an hour of footage here to do, and we can just continue on explaining some of the mechanics as we go along. But yeah, it seems like a pretty sweet game, and apparently, I've heard a lot of people I've heard tried this tend to like it, and pretty curious to see how it pans out here watching these runs.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're gonna start with Prickly Angler's run, and this was with the Uncle Beard character, as we mentioned before. And you said if you pick Uncle Beard, was it after every level you get an extra bomb?
Oh no! So with every life, he gets an extra bomb.
Oh, okay.
So he gets 4 bombs.
That's
instead
big,
of just
though.
the normal 3 of the other 2. Yeah, and the bombs are also pretty powerful, both in the regular form as well as the hyper form. That's like an item pickup, which you'll see in the second level in the replay.
Okay, well, let's start it up, shall we?
Yep.
All right, it'll be on go from 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah. So
right, the bombs though. Oh, go ahead though.
Yeah. So this is actually the only game that NMK developed for the NeoGeo. To my understanding, they actually were working on 2 titles for this system, but the second one never got released. It was canceled. So this is the only one that made it out. It only got a MVS release as well as a home cart AES port. There was a NeoGeo CD version planned and actually shown off at one of the Consumer Electronics shows in 1995, but never actually got released.
I see.
But yeah, he picks 3-way, anti-air, and 2-way for this. At the very start, you can kind of see one of the main aspects of this game going in, which is you can go very close to the ground with your main shot and other weapons, and you can basically continually tick point milk the ground while using your other weapons to hit other enemies on side of screen for additional score throughout the stage. And that allows you to get a massive amount of points early on, and you get that first extend usually by the end of the stage for most players that are like doing this trick.
Yeah, we were actually, before we went live, you were mentioning, it's kind of similar to P47 Aces, but in that you get those tick points from like going inside of like enemy sprites and stuff. But like this, you're still getting tick points, but now you're just shooting to get them.
Well, not exactly, because like the way it works is that like the continuous milk aspect is that like anytime like your shot connects with like an immovable object, so that's like the ground, or it could be an enemy, or it could be like a wall, or like just a square block, you get a tick point every time for that. So you combine this with like external auto fire, and like the tick point milk just like continuously like goes up in value over the course of the stage. And there are certain cases too where like when you bomb, the bomb gives you iframes, and that allows you to basically squeeze into environmental hazards that would normally kill you, and you can also tick milk those a little bit as well.
Okay, nice. It seems pretty like a pretty late optimization though. It's like does that actually give you a lot of points for doing that?
So the way he's doing it right now is probably like I think he's just eyeballing it, because as far as I know, he doesn't use the frame button setup that a lot of scoring setup tricks use and will be shown later on in this episode. But like you can get fairly close to the ground, still get like quite a bit of points even in stage 1 with this. But it's more just like when you get to like those higher scoring thresholds, people do employ the use of lever macros in order to basically precisely put your hitbox just above the ground so that you get the maximum amount of tick point milkage from your shots.
Right.
And this is allowed for any scoring organization in JHA because just like P47 Aces, it beats out the rule that they instituted in like, I believe, April 1996, where lever macros were banned. But any games prior to being released in that time frame were allowed to use those.
A lever macro?
A lever, like the arcade lever that you use, or control joystick.
They have
so
macros for the arcade stick?
I've seen setups where they program that in, where it's just like you assign a directional input to like so like you could assign up to like a button or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And you can, and like from what I understand in like other games that kind of use this with like fighting games prior to like 96 also use this quite a bit for like world record stuff. You could basically do it too, so it's like you have these one frame like directional taps, allowing you to get into some very tight spots that is just much more difficult to do manually and consistently.
So how different is it when you don't have auto fire set up?
I think it's more of like a semi-auto situation where you have to like keep tapping like every so often to like keep up damage output, but external is still overall better just for endurance and just damage output. It's not something I've really messed with a ton because I've never seen this game at an arcade.
But would you say people should definitely set up auto fire when they play this, or does it matter? Does it really matter if you're just?
I think it would still help just for like the ease of accessibility, because like,
are you a lot more powerful with auto fire?
It's pretty. I would say it's definitely noticeable. I don't know about super dramatically, but like, it's a pretty decent jump.
Okay.
Especially if you have like good shot types that allow you to damage bosses pretty quickly.
Yeah, a lot of action. Pretty cool.
Yeah. One of the things he mentioned too in his replays is that the stage is harder with this missile type because you don't have as much coverage, and the frontal firepower from the main shot isn't very useful except for at the end of all those guys throwing the grenades. At the third level anti-air missile, it becomes somehow useful, but it's still not amazing compared to the third level of other missile types, which I kind of have to agree. Like, stuff like the air-to-surface missile just like is not only has a lot bigger of like a hurt box, but it just does more damage. So there's not really much of a point to having it over like one of the other missile configurations.
Man, it seems like it's the scoring is like pretty integrated into the game though, because like you have the hitbox, the boss on the top of that is his head, but the rest of the body, like you're obviously getting score from shooting it. So it's like that's a pretty big clue there that that's how you get score.
Yeah, I just kind of think it's similar to like a lot of the meta of their latter games, where probably just the people were the designers on there were just like, well, we did a really good job with like the caravan aspects of Thunder Dragon 2 and Macross 2. Like, how can we do a new and unique idea to like bounce off of this? And then just decided like, let's do some funny ideas to get the player to engage. So it's like the tick point milking here, the bouncing inside collisional objects and P-47 aces, and then the building / tree humping in Desert War Wingans. And so,
oh wow. Really?
Yeah, because in that game there's like chaining that you can do where you get the helicopter to like bounce on the trees, and then you can build up like a 10K chain as long as you don't shoot with your main shot, which is pretty silly. I've done a bit of scoring that myself. It's kind of stupid.
And then I don't know if you talked about the hyper bomb, but there's like a separate bomb. What's the hyper bomb thing?
So the hyper bomb is a separate item pickup that you pick up, and what that does is instead of the regular bomb where when you press the button there's a short delay before it releases a circular electric spark ball and that damages any enemies in front of you. It changes it to this hyper bomb which has these two shockwaves, which the shockwaves will first can't kill enemies on screen, then will cancel out bullets, and in certain cases can be used pretty effectively to kill certain mid bosses without much trouble. It's also instantaneous, so just better for survival overall. If you pick up excess of these hyper items, you get a 10K bonus.
Okay, nice.
I believe, though, you can only stock up to 8 bombs, so any excess bomb that you pick up past that, you're still getting 10K.
Yeah, we saw the one up just get picked up there. So those appear once you reach the threshold as an item.
Yeah, and they appear as a pickable item, yeah.
I suppose that could be overlooked, potentially. You just weren't, like, looking at the items on screen.
Yeah, I think there's only been a couple of cases where I've seen that happen. It's like you beat a boss right as you meet that threshold, and then you get locked into place after killing the boss.
Oh, really? And then, like, a power-up will be on screen? It's possible.
Yeah, and then you might not pick it up because you just get locked into position wherever you are.
Yeah, and a lot of the bullets I noticed that the attacks can be shot as well, so it's also, I guess that also plays into the milking and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of those bullets are destructible, so you can shoot them with your shot and still get tick points from destroying them.
That's pretty good. I mean, the whole tick point thing, I mean, I always thought that was a pretty sophisticated shmup mechanic, and it's in like a few different games, but this is like a pretty early example of like using it like emphatically for scoring systems. So it's pretty interesting that it's like, you know, it's that old of a thing, but it's like feels like it was just kind of like an idea that, you know, just kind of naturally happened because like when you shoot stuff in a shmup, you are generally getting points, so why not get more points for shooting anything?
Yeah. Well, then just like there's other examples from like older stuff too, where maybe as like a response to seeing other people play stuff, like I think in original Raiden there's like a checkpoint milk you can do on like the 1/6 boss, where you can just milk asteroids and stuff like that, kind of like what this guy's doing right now.
Yeah. But it's like, it's nice. It just gives you something to do all the time.
Yeah,
instead of like just kind of shooting the threats.
Yeah, I kind of figured at this point, like when they probably noticed like other companies getting more competitive with just like some of the ideas being put forward. It's like, you know, players already at this point are very, very skilled at just base survival and just clearing really hard stuff automatically. So kind of the secondary need for some mechanic to entice people to keep putting more money into the machine and optimizing score for it is kind of needed. So they're probably just like bouncing off a lot of ideas off as to how to entice people with that.
Yeah.
This is like kind of a very straightforward example of that versus some of the more obscure stuff you see later in certain games that came out like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Games kind of got like a Thunder Force vibe too. It's like,
yeah,
the scrolling's kind of fast, and seems like there's some gotcha moments here and there.
Oh yeah.
But the action is pretty like fast paced.
Yeah, the first half of the game I don't think is too bad. This boss though is actually where the first ability spike pops in. You got this giant snake enemy which loves to just move all around the screen, launching those bullet clusters. Then you have asteroids to deal with. So like it forces you to move around quite a bit, and like a lot of people will try to move around as best they can, or just use a bomb up close to like speed kill it before they get stuck in a corner.
It's pretty cool.
But yeah, I guess in this case, this shot type can kill it pretty effectively.
I don't think we mentioned yet, but the soundtrack is by Manabu Namiki, so it's like you got like these like samples of like people yelling and stuff in the music, and it's cool. There's a funny story about that I guess apparently half of the ROM space in this game comes from the music alone, because I guess they originally were contracted to do like a over 100 megabit game or whatever, and then when development ended, it was like, oh, we only used up half the space, we got to use that space for something else. So then he just went back and just like added a bunch of additional samples in there just to kind of increase the storage space and just to kind of justify like using all of that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, like this music is it sounds like Balgrega, Into the Leaden Sky or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's stage 1, yeah.
Yeah, I remember he said in like one of the liner notes for this game's soundtrack when it was re-released a while back that I think this stage in particular was influenced by either the original P47 or some other NMK game they did, whereas like, yeah, NMK always had these like night stages that everybody remembered, so I wanted to kind of do something like that too.
I like the night stages. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there's like another interview he did with Shmup, which is covered in Shmuplations, where he talks about going to like these different clubs in Tokyo, like Juliana Tokyo, where it's kind of like these discotheques with recorded music. And at that time, they're sharing all these like other hardcore and techno and Eurobeat CDs, which influenced him a lot, basically, to like design his soundtrack in that way, along with talking to a Sizzla Akabura, who also was the composer for the original P-47 and also composed Viewpoint and also was a DJ at that time in Shibuya.
So they're starting to think about like making the music kind of more, I don't know how could I say it, mainstream, with like, well, not mainstream. Well, mainstream might not be the word I'm looking for, but like more appealing. You know, with like club and dance music, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like it's cool.
Yeah, if you look at like 90s, like just like music culture, like there's so much offshoots of just like electronic music that was not only gaining popularity in their own like genres, but also just within like the main pop mainstream culture. So
yeah,
it kind of makes sense that you would capture some of that and just the commercial works you're trying to release.
Well, then like arcades are always trying to impress, right? So they gotta stay relevant, like music wise too. It's kind of cool. But it's like, this is kind of like, you know, it's kind of out there, like all the samples and stuff. And it's like people that weren't used to hearing this type of thing.
Yeah,
and,
this is like
any games from this era, really.
Yeah, no, this is like still warm its infancy. Like, there's not really a whole lot before this outside of like maybe like Fighter and Attacker and like Raid Force has got some like techno influenced beats in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, Taito seem like they're always kind of ahead of the curve with the music, especially with how weird it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the music is nice in the game, and it's pretty fitting to the action. This is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's frantic and fast paced, which I mean, it's pretty fitting as even for like these later bosses too. That one thing I didn't mention before, but for that boss back there, you actually want to kill the first phase of it when it's in the back of the screen versus the front, because when it's just the second phase, it doesn't move back at all and it'll just fire those lasers in front of you. So you're more likely to die versus just waiting and pushing it back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Lost a few credits to that. Yeah.
So you're saying you want to wait to kill the first phase?
Yeah, you want to wait for the first phase of the boss back there to move all the way to the back of the screen before getting to transition to the second phase. When it moves up and down with the lasers, it doesn't. It's not basically firing literally right in front of you.
Yeah, that would be harder. Yeah, that's a good tip. Good tip.
Yeah, this stage is another big difficulty spike. You have all these enemies coming at you from the sides, so like this is really where knowing like what shot type you want to use and like how to utilize its strengths and then compensate for weaknesses comes to play here.
Suppose when you die, you get powered down a bit.
Yeah, so you power down one level.
One level. Okay.
But you get like usually 2 item drops. The items that appear after death are actually randomly selected from 4 types, which is P plus M, which represents the front shot and missile. M plus R, which is missile plus rear, R plus bomb, rear plus bomb, or bomb plus P, which is bomb and front shot.
Oh, nice.
You can actually somewhat manipulate this, though, based on the way that you start your credit, which is very important, I feel, for the scoring stuff later. For survival player, though, it's not that big of a deal. It's just trying to get back up to full power as soon as you have a death. You don't want to chain death either, too, because like losing 2 levels of like power-ups can be a pretty dramatic difference for some of these shot types, especially like that AA missile.
I think he kind of recovered there after the previous death, but then he died again. But so I think he's still okay. But
until you get used to like the max rank in that stage, it's just hard to like survive without a death. It's just easy to sometimes get walled if you're not really familiar with like the firing frequency and angles of these shots. This boss you want to speed kill because you can milk it, but it's just insane to do. It's just like overlapping like bullet patterns with like different speeds, then you have enemies coming from the back. It's such a pain in the ass to manage. It's like for survival, you get the 2 bombs in there so that like when he opens the hatch, you just do the most amount of damage. But then you get to this stage here where it's not as bad. A lot of it is just you need coverage to deal with some of those like Sako formations and like the robots that come on the top and bottom. Which he says with this missile configuration, it's a little more tricky, but the missile's still very serviceable due to the certain enemy formations, and there are like these blue snakes near the end of the stage that are also easier to destroy with this missile type. And then this is also another area where a lot of people get killed the first time around because you think, oh, I could just stay in the middle, but it's kind of lures you into a false sense of security because it's much harder to dodge instead of just hitting on the bottom.
Yeah, this has been getting a lot harder. Bombing a lot to survive.
Yeah, it's easy to get boxed in and then just have to use your resources.
So is the rank just like a survival rank? And you didn't mention
Yeah,
that.
so rank in this game, I think it's very similar to like Thunder Dragon 2, where it's like you start off at a selected value and then the survival rank just goes up over time. But from what I seem to notice, it maxes out around stage 6 or 7. So like once you get used to those, like the game doesn't really become harder beyond that.
When
if
you
do
die,
rank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you die, rank is dropped by a certain amount, like, and things get noticeably easier for like quite a bit. Usually it's like maybe a minute or two before it starts to get back to where it was before.
Okay.
But it gives you like a bit of a nice breather before it gets back to that point, so then you could just pick up power-ups, get your mental facilities back.
Seems good. Insane ship.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't know why they picked the name, but it rules and I'm here for it.
Well, and Big Bill back there.
Yeah, Big Bill.
Bill
Such
Clinton, maybe. Isn't this the Clinton years?
That is, yeah, that's true. The other thing I could think of is like maybe they played too much Mario and they're like Giant Bullet Bill.
Yeah. That's the only other Bill I really can think about.
Yeah. And then now we're at the last stage here, so
yeah, that's creepy.
That's actually the final boss there, but for the most of the stage you can't actually damage her. You're just dealing with her annoying attacks while dodging other stuff and killing enemies, which is she's got these like really slow aimed bullets at you, or like this fast spread, which
that's pretty clever.
Yeah, that dodge there, that was a little ridiculous the way you did it. But
yeah, that's creepy looking.
Yeah, she's apparently like she has a bunch of lore too. Like she canonically enjoys the gabber, which is like this techno genre. I don't know why they decided to give her that factoid, but
wow. That's really random.
I guess they felt like just fleshing her out.
I guess the music is coming from inside the game.
It's a good point.
It's like coming from the base.
All your base are belong to us.
Well, it does sound like there's like that vocal in the background. It sounds like it's maybe supposed to be the boss or something.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that a bit more because I don't remember if it's based on anything else in game.
This is madness.
But yeah, as you can see right now,
man, I thought the Gradius mechanical base was tough.
Yeah, most of this is just like you got these like overlapping enemy patterns, and it's just kind of knowing how to like read where to go from certain areas and stuff like that. But one of the things that can help you out in this case is that if you actually run out of bombs, but you pick up one of the hyper items, it actually gives you a spare bomb stock.
An extra
it's
bomb?
Like, Yeah, but that's only if you have 0 bombs when picking it up.
Pretty cool.
This guy here, you need a bomb, otherwise you can't do it. It's too hard. It's all the overlapping patterns.
That medium enemy?
Yeah, that medium mid-boss enemy from stage 5.
The music kind of sounds like Stab and Stomp from Garega. A little bit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It would not surprise me though, like, this is probably like a test bed for just like stuff that he put in like his music library and then just would reuse that in like later soundtracks.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is just like these guys get like different MIDI modules, pick out like different samples from those, and then make it work with the system sound chip.
Some of the music definitely reminded me of B47 Aces as well, and I do believe Namiki worked on that too.
I think he just did sound effects for that game because it was other NMK guy, Hide Kaz, who did the soundtrack for that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that was the last boss. You can just speed kill it with a few bombs.
Oh, so I didn't even notice it became vulnerable.
Yeah, that when that core shows up in view, there's actually there's like 3 different phases, but like if you just point blank plus bomb, it like skips those really fast.
Nice. GG for sure. That was pretty cool. Oh, that got pretty nuts in the latter half for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with a bit of practice, it becomes a lot easier when you realize where there's like generally more safe zones, like near the bottom of the screen that you can kind of manipulate.
Yeah.
But at first, it is pretty overwhelming.
Well, this is a sweet cutscene. He's like patting himself on the shoulder.
Yeah, mission well done. And yeah, that's the end of the game. There's not a lot of other information outside of what you get in game for the world building, outside of just promotional info from like the title, from like the arcade flyers that came out, like the manual, just basically highlighting that like you're stopping this supercomputer Yggdrasil from launching attacks on Earth and halting their invasion.
Good stuff. All right, let's get the next replay queued up here. This one's gonna be from a different player who goes by the name of ZFC FCM.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be more score-centric run.
That's right. Yeah. This will be, I believe, a 7.7 million clear, which is like probably the second highest replay we have on file. There's another player named Izuru that has a 7.9, but in general, most of the strats are pretty similar outside of like more slightly optimal tick milk stuff in that replay. So I think you'll generally get the main gist of it from hopefully what it can explain in this replay.
Nice. Any other yeah, so like they're using that different is a different character and shot?
No, it's actually Uncle Beard, but like the shot configuration is the scoring shot configuration, which is front facing wave, air to surface missiles, and then backwards wave shot. Because the wave shots give you like the highest tick milk points like per frame. So like when you couple this with like the frame buttons, this tick points go up probably the most out of any other shot type, and is very useful for hitting a lot of those immovable objects and like mid-boss enemies to optimally milk them. So that's why that's kind of been like the best choice in the scoring meta.
Right.
I think it's been that way for a very long time, actually, probably since near the game's launch.
Using the shot types.
Yeah, because like I think on the Shmups wiki, if you actually look at the Hall of Records like stuff for this game, like pretty much like everything I can see, it's just like these guys are using pretty much the same shot type configurations from what I can tell. Like it, and from experience of trying other shot types out, like Wave is the only one that seems to get like the most consistently large amounts of tick points from them.
Nice. Okay, let's get into it because this is going to be a longer replay with more milking and whatnot, and yeah. All right.
All right.
Oh, also, is there any version differences between the Z Blade Japan and the Operation Ragnarok world?
As far as I know, the only difference is different boot up like screen. Like there's some Japanese warning with Operation Ragnarok and a different title screen versus Z Blade.
Okay, so
but
nothing
there's
really.
nothing functionally different like in game.
Okay, that's what I'd ask there.
Well,
Thanks for the raid, by the way. You need a moment?
Yeah, because Prickly is asking if you should join.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello.
Hello, sorry for I'm late. I'm very, very sorry.
Hey, it's all good. Yeah, we just did the survival run. That was pretty cool, and you're actually just in time. We're gonna start the second run by ZFC. So if you want to get that queued up, we'll get that going shortly. But yeah, everybody, it's Prickly Angler, our guest of the episode.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I thought it was tomorrow. My brain messed up. I'm not going to be very useful because actually Maximo knows the scoring meta much better than I do. But I'm still glad I can be there. I'm just going to put the run. Just 1 second.
Glad you can make it, and yeah, it happened. Actually,
yeah, I'm very sorry. I know last few times it wasn't me, but yeah, very sorry for this time.
It's fine. Yeah,
but
we did fine there.
Yeah, I trust you guys. I chose my run to commentate because it's one that take a forward missile, which is pretty rare. It's not really useful, not really that useful, but I thought it was fun to showcase because it's not so much common.
Yeah. Yeah, GG.
So I'm ready for... Thank you. I'm ready for watching the run.
Okay, cool. I'll get us on go off a 3, 2, 1, go countdown.
Yeah, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so one trick this guy actually does at the beginning of this run is that you can change the game settings in the BIOS. So you change, when you put in a credit, it changes the start from 30 seconds normally to 1 second, and then you start the game without skipping any of the upcoming screens like how to control the game, picking your equipment, and then from that you can actually fix the order in which additional items that appear after death appear. So like instead of it being random, you can actually fix it so that when he does the 2 suicides at the beginning, he gets the first 2 P plus M and M plus R, so that you can raise your power levels earlier on, thus allowing you to get a lot more powerful shots at the beginning and subsequently more tick points out of it.
I think we just saw the bomb to get more tick there by going inside. And there's the
tick,
one up
and
already.
also, you go to the right so that he can still milk the ground as well with all those shots interconnecting.
Yeah. And I had one question, Maximo. I heard that you needed to wait like 30 seconds and not pressing anything to get like the good setup for a power up. What he did at the beginning, does it allow him to skip that or?
So this is something I tested out personally, but like you can go in the BIOS settings, you change this game start to 1 second. And as long as you don't like skip for any of the like demonstration stuff and let the equipment screen basically count down the full 30 seconds or whatever it is, that allows you to basically fix the order in which those items drop after death.
Interesting.
Man,
did you talk about the frame button?
Yeah, so one of the things that is heavily used in the scoring meta, kind of like another infamous NMK game, P47 Aces, is that there are directional frame buttons that you can use, which in other words is basically like a lever macro. You assign a directional input to a button, and then you can choose how many frames you want to go up, down, left, right, or whatever you choose to basically allow you to very carefully move in selected positions so that you basically barely avoid not only hitting the ground here, but getting the maximum amount of like tick point milkage from having all those shots connect into the ground.
Yeah, connect into the ground, yeah, it's possible to get into that spot. I already got into that spot manually because I play on the Arcade Archive version, and it's not exactly perfect for high scoring because you don't have a lever button, you don't have... well, you have different auto fires, but it's a bit... weird how they handle, but I think the 30 like the frame button is like to get very consistently, because otherwise it's like really precise, and sometimes to get into that spot, like you want to go diagonally upwards then downwards, and sometimes I try that and I get hit in the ground because the place where he's at, where basically the wave is very, very precise.
So you can crash into the ground, right?
Yeah, like what you saw in my run, I was a bit into the ground, but I wasn't fully into the ground. Like to be in that precise spot where all your shots instantly get absorbed, except for the upper missile. Yeah, it's pretty.
So I guess it's a matter of like lining up with something and then using the macro to go into the spot, or like how do you actually use it? The lever macro.
I mean, the way I used it is just like you can actually do this in MAME now, since I think 0.254, where you can basically create these like directional input macros. You assign like how long the macro lasts for, and you can get it to repeat. And then again, you basically use it by like getting pretty close to the ground, then you just kind of like tap downwards. Like you move the ship down by like a frame or two until you get to the spot where you're just barely above the ground hitbox.
It's just to control how many frames you move to be more delicate.
Yeah, but since every shot, whether it's tick points or just destroying something or invisibility, gets you points, is going to be very like getting a few extra frames closer. It's gonna give you more tick point, but it's not as exponential as you would think. Like if you play just like that and just hug around, you're gonna get some points. But if you want like maximum optimal voice, you're going to want to use the frame button.
Yeah, exactly. And I see what you see saying in chat there about we can get Tazayuki to your world records in MAME. Fortunately, this game is very, very optimized, I feel like, at this point, because the world record is 8.3 million done by RoboCop back in 2012, and I don't think I've seen anybody get within 300k of that since there. Yeah. You guys been playing the game for like over 20 years when he did that world record.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, but actually the no auto fire meta is very active. I've seen the world record get beaten a few times. I think it last year. One of the players I know is Yamamoto. I know there's some other few players around, but yeah, you saying for auto it's solved pretty much.
I think for auto it's just very, very hard to optimize because that's where the vast majority of records were played on. And even looking at Gamist issues from like 94, 95, like they were already at like 6.5, 6.6, and then a year later they're at 7.3 already. Yeah.
Can you explain, by the way, what he did with the wall, the little wall? I think he used the frame button there, right?
So at the wall there you can actually you bomb to get past the wall, and then you can get additional damage, and then you can set up your directional inputs so that you basically scrape the bottom of the ground there, and you move directional input left to squeeze in between that slime or worm or whatever that is, and then just continually tick milk the legs.
So
you can do this manually too, but
is that just a safe spot then, or?
No, because you have to do it precisely, or else your hitbox can actually shift when you're entering that area there, and you get clipped because the hitbox like barely hits like either the top of the legs or like the main component of the body itself.
Well, were the bubbles supposed to hit, or was he safe from that when they were dropping?
No,
down?
so like the bubbles is more like you can tick milk those if you're just getting started out on scoring, but like you get way more tick points from the shots colliding with the legs.
I'm just wondering why he
here.
didn't die there.
Yeah.
Because it looked like the bubbles were falling on him.
So the firing rate with 30 hertz on all those buttons plus the frame macro, like if you get it set up properly, the speed at which the shots come out will cancel the bubbles before they can hit you. Because if you don't set it up right, like you have a slower auto firing speed, there can be showed up, and then you can die from that.
Interesting.
I didn't know the bubbles were being destroyed the last second there.
Yeah, and it's like you can kind of somewhat visually tell if the way the shots are being connected, like
with
there's frame buttons for that too. When he's hugging the wall there and just tick milking it.
You can see him using it when he's like moving pixel by pixel occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. There's like, oh my god, there's probably like macros for like every single directional input.
Yeah,
that I've seen. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems.
Yeah, but what about the no auto fire run? Isn't that going to be like super mashy to get high scores?
Yeah, like the Yamamoto guy, he posted pictures of his hand on Twitter. And
his hand.
Not always pretty to see.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it says like, I've been mashing like crazy. Yeah, it's.
That's nuts. That's some real endurance right there.
Yeah. And I was a bit surprised to see a few players were going at it. It wasn't just like one player, because I think on some games like you see the auto record being broken, but it's just. But no, it seemed to be like a few different players going at it.
Like, how do you mash? Right. You gotta have a good technique to mash for that long.
Yeah. I don't know.
Otherwise, you'll injure yourself.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, but because it's all tick points, theoretically you want to shoot the faster you can in pretty much every situation. I think. Maybe I'm missing something, but otherwise, I think you pretty much want to have the maximum frequency or at least of it.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of other submissions on like the Hall of Records page mentioned like 20 hertz and 15 hertz auto fire aid, but I didn't find a lot of utility from those when I was personally testing it out. So maybe that's something I need to research into more.
Interesting.
The only thing I could think of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is the only thing I could think of is maybe switching to the other auto fires might be good if like you can't get the 30 hertz to work automatically. So you switch another frequency and then switch back to 30 to get the consistent rhythm. Yeah,
for like slowdown or things like that, you think?
Possibly. Or just not even setting it up correctly in the first place.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so the thing I was going to say is obviously since you're milking tick points and invisible parts, every boss is going to last to the maximum amount of time you can. And if you look at this enemy, this actually until you kill it, there's not going to be anything coming. It's kind of the opposite of a caravan style scoring, where like when you kill it, then the stage advances. So naturally you don't want to kill it and you want to preserve. But actually what he's doing right here is pretty tricky to get that dodge, because the hitbox is pretty big and the bullets are relatively fast. So when I saw you run, I noticed you did it a little bit differently. You look much safer.
Yeah, I did that precisely because like I saw where he's getting those maximum tick points from that, but the gap was just too small to consistently do at that point in time. So it was like you might as well just leave a little bit of gap. That's like maybe a miss out on 10K or 5K or whatever it is. But it's far more important to like get this one, for example, because like you get so much.
Yeah, so much points. Yeah, because it's this enemy is a bit annoying when you first start the game, like just surviving, and like with sometimes that you just use a bomb. But because it fires destructible bullets from both sides, and you can shoot at the structure. So obviously it's no problem.
Yeah.
I think for this one, you want to wait until they part to hit them, or ideally because they split in two, and obviously that's more tick points.
Yeah, exactly. And then just waiting until it times out near the end as before you just kill as it's going off screen for the other items to drop.
Yeah. And I think you also get some points for timing out like bosses and things like that. So basically, there's no need to like worry on when you're gonna kill it or what.
So it's a little weird because I've noticed some inconsistencies to that where like on the second boss, if you let it live for too long and it destroys itself, sometimes you don't get the boss kill bonus. But then you do it before that, then you do. So that took a little bit of work. Interesting.
How much is it, by curiosity, the second boss?
I think it was like 80k or something like that for the kill bonus.
So it's still a lot. Yeah, it's still a lot.
So like, yeah, you have to kind of time that stuff, especially because we don't have any fancy timer gadgets like M2 bros do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and these snakes, more milk, this game's all about that.
Yeah.
Evading the sides of the missiles and those front shots.
Does the snake always go the same place on screen?
They have fixed patterns to like each of their movements.
Yeah.
It's more just like not getting hit by the flame because the flame has a pretty big hitbox and can still make you if you're not completely in the right spot.
Yeah. Oftentimes you get hit by that hitbox when you first play the game. You're like, oh, what hit me?
Yep.
And actually, it's the flame.
What hit me?
Yeah. But at the same time, sometimes they have a sort of a small hitbox, so you can be in certain spots and be okay. But if you're at the wrong spot, and sort of get to learn them with time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it kind of makes us like, even if you're learning some of these later stages, which are just harder to score into, it's like you at least have something to do to keep the early stages interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then we're gonna see the boss, and I think the boss, ideally, you don't want to kill it too fast, or because I think it spawns destructible. Bullets. Yeah.
There's a lot of destructible bullets that spawn, so it's like you just wait in the corner, you hit it with your shot a little bit, and like maybe this is also where having a lower rate of auto fire could potentially help if you don't want to do the tap method where you just tap a couple streams to get rid of whatever's on screen. But I remember showing this off to someone and just like, dude, how long does this boss go on for? What are you even doing this for?
Yeah. Well, points are points.
Yeah, it's just like you're an RPG collecting coins or something.
Yeah.
I like how he's like waiting for the bullets to go to that spot where the shot intersects to make sure that everything
yeah, so it's like
right.
It doesn't damage the main core because like you shoot too much in the main core, it actually expands faster outwards to go to its second phase where it's like flying around the screen, then you actually can kill the balls around it. So it's like some straight lead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a boss that can clip you easily because the destructible bullets sort of spawn in some weird places. So like what he's doing right there is a bit more complicated than what it looks. It's just not just about like staying in a corner and shooting, because sometimes a destructible bullet might get in between.
Or you have one of those balls come back from off screen that just hits you from the top.
Yeah.
I've had that a number of times.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then once you get to a certain amount, it's like, then it's just like you lightly just tap and just like destroy.
Yeah.
You just keep respawning.
Yeah, once there's not too much balls, it's okay. But I think the only part that hits is like the core, right? Or like I was never exactly sure of the hitbox of this thing.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like you hit one of those 4 balls that's like next to the core is like what counts as like the boss HP.
Yeah.
So like the ones that release that are independent from that is just like destructible, or at least that's how I usually treat it. And like that boss many times that still gives you points.
Yeah.
So it's like just so weird how inconsistent they are sometimes with that.
Yeah. That's another stage with a wall and ceiling. Even though it's not continuous like the first stage, you still want to milk it as much as possible. And it looks like the frame button was used to hug that thing.
Oh yeah, you definitely use that. And the top, I think, gets picked more often than the bottom.
Yeah.
Because there are certain cases where you have a little more downtime between certain waves on the top.
Oh, interesting.
So that's where it's easier for him to basically squeeze in between like whatever's left of the space, you, and the top of the screen.
Yeah. And one thing I've always been curious is that you get points for every tick point, but like, is it more interesting to hit enemies with your shot rather with the missile because the missile is so strong? Like, is it like ideally for scoring? Do you want to do most of it with the shot or?
I think still you want to do most of the shot because like, yeah, the missile is powerful, but like, the tick point thing only works so well as like you can get very up to close to something where even with just the base shot in itself, there are still situations where it's like you can get a lot of tick points even with the shot, even if you're not exactly like right next to the enemy, or even just stuff like that, which is kind of funny milk.
It's like milking it to the core and then bombing out if safety and then milking the missiles. The boss fires.
Yeah, exactly. Like you go in the mid-boss armpit as M9 puts it, squeeze out of there, and then you're like...
Yeah, his armpit is a good metaphor.
Enough damage to hit those missiles, but then not hit enough of the main core to kill it too early.
Yeah. Actually, this is not the best formation to get every missile, but since it doesn't matter to get every missile, it doesn't change. Like you have formations where you can just not move, and then it'll destroy every missile. But since it's tick points and it's not the basic value of each enemy in this game, like it doesn't matter at all. Like for scoring, like there's no need to know it. Unlike on some games where you like to choose what enemy you kill first, or here it doesn't matter really.
There's like maybe one case where that could be kind of important in stage 6, but like outside of that, it's like it's just more about tick milk stuff and how long can you keep it going.
Yeah, like you mean more like shooting one enemy and not the other, or in stage 6?
It's more like I think there are these 3 enemies that stop like on one of the mid-boss formations in stage 6 where they're each like 50k each or something like that.
Yeah.
You'll see when we get there.
Okay. So very funny boss. I love this boss a lot. It's actually entirely fixed. It looks very, very chaotic when you first, but it's entirely fixed. So you can memorize a path or route to shoot the least possible.
Yeah, and this is also another point where actually having full power here is beneficial because you can induce slowdown and then make getting for some of those gaps more consistent versus if you didn't have full power for all your shots. Yeah.
And one thing you can also notice is that the wave, when it's max power, actually has a big blind spot behind, which is also useful for scoring because sometimes you can get really close to enemy, so the enemies not hit their weak point, but still hit the things outside that are indestructible. Ideal.
Right, and then just continually get points off of that.
Yeah.
I think there's also a plant suicide on this boss too. Just
I believe
the next stage.
If I remember it right,
because with that stage 3 mid-boss enemy with the 2 parts, it's like having so you see he does that there and doesn't fully upgrade the forward shot because it's easier to get the maximum tick point milkage when you're 1 below max power of your front shot.
Okay. So it's not for rank reasons. It's purely for...
it's scoring,
Yeah, because I know this boss has homing bullets. This enemy, like sort of mid-boss, has homing bullets. But, actually, I think it's...
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to deal with it either way. Like, even if the mid-boss did have homing bullets at that point, they're aimed at you, so it's just where you're positioned on screen. You might lose a bit of tick points because of having to dodge that. Okay. But you can still do the majority of that, even with it.
Yeah, and right here we're seeing that it really kills those enemies with the shots and not with the missile. You can actually go down and just hit him with the missile and have a blind spot. But my guess is he's doing it with the shot because it costs more.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. It's like
if you have the chance, like it's not that big of a deal, but if you have the possibility of not hitting with your missile, it's...
Right. Yeah, these guys are at the point where it's just like any point source counts.
Yeah, definitely.
So this game is so often at the point where it's like not just enough to hit every major milk point, but it's like optimizing all the little stuff as well.
Yeah.
Whatever you can squeeze out.
Yeah, because some of the next boss milks are gonna be really, really crazy.
Oh god, yeah. The next
I'm not
stage
spoiling, but yeah, the next stage is really, really insane.
Actually, insane.
Yeah. Yeah, so you probably discussed a bit for survival, but this is like the first stage where you really want to know where enemies are at.
Yep.
Otherwise, it can be a bit tricky to... Like those, you can dodge them completely, so it's just more easier to...
Yeah.
So another milk with this enemy. Oh yeah, I saw the hummingbirds. Yeah, I remember them now.
Yep. But then you want bombs for the
next one. It's really nuts, actually.
Insane to try to dodge that manually.
Yeah.
And then the other formation intersecting with it.
Yeah. So those snakes, when you destroy them, their parts fly off the screen, and they can hurt you actually, but you can also destroy them for points. So that's what he's trying to do, I think. I think he was waiting a bit to get the snake more into the middle of the screen, so he can shoot more effectively.
Yeah, and get as many components as possible before they leave the screen.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hard. They just kind of go off pretty fast.
Yeah, a bit of a risky situation, but he managed it pretty well.
Yeah, so already is 5 million going into this boss. Just like, it just goes to show, like, with all these setups, like, you can already have double average survival clear score by this point in the game.
Yeah. This boss is gonna probably, I think, if I remember correctly, is gonna make the first face, because that's the one you can milk the most.
That's right, yeah.
He'll probably destroy the 2 heads because it's worth points, but otherwise it's just milking the tentacles. I find this movement, like what he does, the pattern, really, really beautiful to see.
Yeah,
like sitting here.
Yeah, it feels so good once you get it down. I don't even think he needs to worry too much about the heads, because you still can outpace that with the...
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
yeah.
How powerful Uncle Beard is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, definitely right.
It's like, yeah, he's gonna miss on the one on top, but it's a very, very small point loss versus everything else going on.
Yeah.
On top of it, you can just enjoy the music in the meantime.
Yeah, same with the asteroids and the ceiling. Like, it doesn't... Maybe, like, in the second part, maybe he's gonna want to delay the kill to get more of the asteroids and the ceiling.
Yeah, you could do it.
I don't even remember. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can kind of somewhat manipulate the stuff based on your movements, so... I think for him, it's just like, once you get it down, it's just like, you can just kind of stall it out a little bit.
Yeah.
You want until he times out.
Yeah. Yeah, so next stage is the crazy stage with all the...
Yep.
Yeah.
I was mentioning it earlier, but
yep.
I think that's the stage where you first hit max rank, because it doesn't seem to get any harder really beyond that if you're on like no miss pace.
Yeah, and even when you die in that stage, the max rank gets up pretty quickly again. Like you have some time, but you notice it because the enemies with the sort of arms, tentacles, they shoot a spread shot from the front.
Right. Yeah.
And if they don't, they just shoot the laser, and they're pretty easy to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, to score in that stage, you already need to have a very good survival skill, like be able, I think, to do the whole thing without bombing.
Yeah, exactly. Just knowing, being cognizant of your blind spots and where stuff can hit. Yeah, so like those enemies that stop right there, you don't want to miss those, because those get 50K each, and there's 2 different sets. Yeah. when they're destroyed. So there's
Yeah,
one set there, and there's one set at the very end of the stage where you might miss on it if you're playing for survival, but for score, you don't want to miss those. That's the only point where like destruction of an enemy is.
Okay, those blue ones, the big one with the arms, or like the mecha, you mean?
The red guys that had stock before, but you want to take out these mid bosses.
Oh, so you mean depending on the pattern, they don't have the same amount of points, the red mechas?
So yeah, those red mechas have different point values.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know. I know they have different patterns, like 4 types, but I didn't know they had. Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this stage is
this one.
Yeah.
Just
yeah, they come from behind. Yeah, this stage is pretty hard to memo at first when you because all these enemies come from flying from all directions, and there's very little, well, basically no visual cues to sort of notice where they come from.
Yeah, there's no feedback at all. It's just like you have to know when they're coming or anticipate.
Yeah, when they're coming. Yeah. And there's some memo tricks, like memo, but they take some time to learn. So this is Big Bill, is the the big milk in the game, like insane milk. Basically, the boss is going to So the boss is going to open its core and like fire bullets, but there's mechas flying through the screen, and they fire aim bolts.
Yep.
So you need to navigate through this whole mess without killing the boss too much. And it looks sort of easy when you watch it, but it's not.
It's actually it's hard. Yeah, like the big hitbox plus slow plus 2 different streams of like fast bullets. It's so easy to get off guard and get nicked. Trying to readjust yourself.
Yeah, when I first saw FCM's run, that was the part that impressed me the most. Like definitely.
Yeah, and it's like even from practice, it's like I can only do a few waves of that before it just gets too overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. And you see the point gain, it isn't even that significant compared to some easier milks, you know.
Yeah, even like the next boss
really cool to see.
Versus this.
Yeah. So really beautiful to see.
Points are points.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then you're invincible after the boss dies. But,
so you
there's also a point where you can take advantage, but there's also a point where you cannot shoot anymore. So even if there's some enemy, sorry.
Yeah.
do. God damn.
Starting to like the music, nice.
Yeah.
He's got the brainworms.
Yeah,
this stage, I don't think there's too much you can really do from score outside of like the mid-boss stuff that we had talked about before, but...
Yeah, it's a new mid-boss, new enemies, and you're gonna see them in the final stage too. I think we're going to come right there. Yeah, and you also have those enemies that when you shoot them, they fire bullets and they step down. They're a bit tricky to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I kind of like the asteroid parallax scroll.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's kind of nice.
It really looks beautiful.
Parallax in space.
Yeah, that's really one of the stages that struck me the most when I first played the game. It's gonna get more and more purple as you get through the stage. I really like that nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like kind of the night-day cycles they did in some of the other games, whether it be like Mustang, Thunder Dragon.
Yeah,
nice.
Definitely. So after that, we're going to be a part with like the slugs. I don't know if you can call them that way.
They're like space snakes or whatever.
Yeah. So you can milk them because only the mouse is takes damage. So you have movements.
Tick milk the back and this middle.
Yeah. And some of them come from one direction, and usually it's one from one direction, the other from the other direction. So it like follows the river. Some come from the center. Some of them come from the bottom, and I think one of them comes from the top. If my memory serves me right.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a fixed order which they appear in, but it's like you always get like the middle one for like it's either like 3 or 6. They're like the middle ones.
Yeah. Yeah, when you first reach that section, you're a bit scared and you sort of always bomb. But if you have those missiles, the AS missiles, you get close, it's really easy to get rid of.
Yep.
So insane cheap. This boss, you can only damage it from behind. So you can pretty much milk the front safely. It's the core. I don't know if you talked a bit. Yep.
Yeah, so for this boss, there's also specific movement patterns you need to do to avoid using resources and milking the front of it there, because even though it may seem like, oh, those lasers are overlapping, like there's specific things that you can do to avoid damaging. And I also had to make mental notes about, like, I think for the first and third waves of that, it's like you can tap up to the top and you should be safe, but then for 2 and 4, you actually have to cut back down to the bottom.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult pattern. I think I dodged it one time, but it goes pretty fast.
Yeah, it's just hard to see, especially like.
The gray strays. Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing that was intentional death, but it's hard to tell.
You think that one is also for tick point milking in the next stage as well. So I've seen other replays do the same thing.
So a bomb restock was the point of that, or
yeah, I think there are bombs that are used for like some of those other sections later on. Because there's one more suicide in play for this final stage as well, which is to set for bombs in the final boss.
Yeah. And in this stage, you're going to have the cubes you had in stage 1, so very invincible until some enemy comes out of it. So you can knock them as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think you probably explained the mid-boss, like 2 patterns and...
Yeah, there's specific patterns, and then you can also kind of manipulate the way the Valkyrie fires like the slow spread there to like optimally get to where you want to be. Like kind of misdirecting it there, so that's like then you reposition, hit stuff on the top of the missile, and then avoid the shots, so that you don't have to waste a bunch of bombs just panicking and being like, where do I go?
Yeah, it's a surprisingly consistent stage. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it looks nuts, etc., but trust me, it's not too hard to learn. Like you have it's very logical. There's one section that's a bit difficult with 2 enemies like firing from all sides. But aside from that, surprisable how learnable this stage is.
Yeah, it's not too bad once you get the variance with it. Back there, you saw you use the bombs so that you can milk those cubes more and then avoid the enemies pot shotting in from behind.
Yeah, another boss.
Yeah, bomb to get inside of there and then get out.
So that was for like 20k, like spending those bombs, like.
Yep. Yeah, because it's like with the fixed order too, when he has to do the inevitable last suicide at the end there, he gets his bombs back, and then there's a milk on the final boss as well, which is very lucrative. But I think he still keeps that last bomb because of the mid-boss enemy coming up here.
Yeah. Oh no, he uses before actually. Interesting. Oh, okay. Okay, so he suicides.
Or does he? Oh wait, no, that's right. He sets up for the mid-boss suicide, then kills the.
Oh, it milks the mid-boss. Awesome.
Peak.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get some more bombs before the final boss. Two bombs.
Yep. That's all he'll pretty much need, because you'll see with the final boss.
Yeah.
You can kind of manipulate when it fires or where you direct it to. Yeah, so 7.1 basically entering the final boss. It's massive. And so here he's setting this up so that he can move in a spot for the milk, because that blue ball trail or whatever, it'll normally just home into your position, but from what I understand, you can sort of semi-manipulate this. Partially, I think this is kind of why the suicide also helps too, is because it seems to move slower when you die at an earlier point in the stage.
Interesting.
Midpoint or whatever before that. And that allows you to more consistently get set up so that, like, instead of the ball tracking onto you and then killing you when you get to the left-hand corner, it stays in that pattern over you from some sort of degree of angle manipulation, allowing you to tick milk it with the shots. And thus, you get a ton of points from that.
One final milk. Goodness.
Yep.
Good stuff.
The milk to end the haul.
It's pretty
pretty
long.
sweet. Is it long?
Yeah. It's not that long, but I was saying like the game overall is pretty long. I think it's like 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
With the milks.
Yeah,
like
with the milks,
average
yeah.
title is not too long. It's like 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice. I mean, all that milking and skillful, from what I can tell. So it's not like you're not boring.
I mean, some of the milks are really easy. Like you just shoot and sit and shoot, but it's not the optimized way of milking. Like sometimes in my run, I just like to sit there and just shoot and do nothing. But yeah, some of the milks are pretty.
Well, like a lot of times it was like getting back into position. So if you can do that faster, more efficiently, then you're gonna score more from gaining more experience. So it's like it's pretty high skill ceiling. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a very impressive game to score, and although it looks a bit dumb, I think it's pretty fun. My PB is sort of like 4 million, something like that, but I had fun going there, and I feel it's something that I can take on and just improve. I don't know how you say it. Like gratefully, like a few steps every time.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for like PB improvement too. Because I was telling these guys earlier on that in the Western community, this game has always been pretty unpopular for like score. Like the only other instance I could think of people really going ham on this was like in London they used to have this arcade called the Casino, and I guess a bunch of people on the shops
Casino arcade,
that, and posted some like 3.5 to 4 million scores like 12, 13 years ago. And then no one really played it outside of that
anymore.
You did like all your clear runs of like clearing of every ship type or shot type.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm sorry I wasn't there the show, but I want to say I discovered this game through Arcade Archives. There was a sale. I had no idea what to expect, but I liked NMK, and I heard it was NMK. And I had, lots of fun discovering the weapon system, etc. So I know some people got into the game through me, so thank you a lot. Like Goals wrote a message, so I'm really thankful that I made this game discover. But yeah, there's a lots of possibilities to score, and it was very fun because when I first submitted the SG Weekly Play, I was playing the game a lot, but then from between that time, you got much more expert than myself, so pretty glad to have you here explain that.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just like testing out stuff that I'd seen talked elsewhere and being like, how far can I push it? Because I also had mentioned earlier that the community record before this was done by DGN, who is part of Arcade Extreme, basically Team Italy. He has some other stuff, but like with the stuff I've been calling, I'm being like, I could beat this with like his score from like one suicide, and then that ended up happening to the final boss milk at the end, which he did not do on his run. And then
interesting.
Because originally I was thinking like, can I get away with just one suicide and stuff? Like the two I had seen a lot of other runs, and later on it's like, even though 2 suicides is actually more optimal for score, it's just interesting to see that you can still get 6 million even with the one suicide stage one.
Interesting, what did you say, sorry?
I just said like it was interesting because I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about that. Yeah, I think honestly it's I think for me, I have not played all the game, but one of the most significant or good NMK games like Thunder Dragon 2, things like that. Like I really like the graphics, the music. Although I heard some people say they did not like the music,
so it's not.
It's an acquired taste.
Well,
yeah.
I think it was mostly good. It's just a couple of the songs last a little long in the stage, and they don't. That one I was mocking. That was going for like 5 minutes, and it was like a 20-second loop or something.
I
think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one on the final stage.
But there was definitely some bangers.
So actually, Namiki answered that question in the Schmopulations interview. One of the reasons he said that was production period was rather short. When development began, there was no idea of how many levels the game might have. So if I wanted to finish all the music by the scheduled deadline, I worked to simply write as many songs as I could within the given time. That's how many I ended up with. So from what it sounds like, he didn't know how many stages there would be, and I guess wrote 4 or 5 tunes to kind of signify that, and then later on, whatever specification was probably changed mid-development, and it's like, well, I guess we got to go with this and just reuse tracks or just work with it.
I see. So some of the songs that were repetitive might have been a result of the rush, or the development planning. Yeah,
it sounds like one of those cases where it was like they were kind of just shifting expectations of development. Like there's stuff in that same interview talking about we need to use up cartridge space, so we reworked the samples to use up more space in the cartridge. And then also this was supposed to get a NeoGeo CD port at some point, and then that got canceled. NMK was working on another game for NeoGeo, and that got canceled at some point.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a lot of stuff here that's just we might not know outside of whatever's presented here, or just if some guy comes forward later on, it's just like, I got a bone to pick. Let me tell you about my story and working at NMK.
Yeah, definitely a peculiar game. Like NMK on NeoGeo, like it's the only game they made, and
Yep, that's it. Yeah, and all the other stuff outside those, like on one of Jellicoe's systems, like the System 32. Before they went bankrupt.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a developer that gets a bit overlooked sometimes because they still made 17 shmups. Really a lot, actually, when you compare to some other devs. Maybe some of them not really good or not at your taste, but really encourage you to try their games because I think
definitely
overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, even with like newcomers, I always recommend like just check out like Thunder Dragon 2 or especially Cross 2 because of just the accessible caravan style.
Yeah, and Thunder Dragon 2 is really, really good. Like the stage design, it's really good. And I want to say, like, this sort of stuff was tried out before. Like I can think of Gradius 3, which has insane replay value with the different ships, etc. But I think Ragnarok is a bit more easier to get into because some of the options in Gradius 3, like snake option or backwards spread bomb, is a bit tricky to use. In this one, I think you can pretty much use all weapon like that. The one you saw in my replay, the forward missile, isn't really too useful, but it can be good for some sections. So like, if there's no ship that is going to be perfect for every section, but it's really fun. I had a lot of fun trying out different combinations, and it was really
definitely
interesting. So,
it's an interesting way you put it.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe a bit of a shame that there's only one type that is used for scoring, but again, there's 81 different combinations, so I think they just went for simplicity, and I don't think it's the game that is played. Like, if it could be Gareg or Batrider, maybe you could create categories for like, but I don't see much interest in that.
That's kind of the hard part is that, like, even you see that on like other scoreboards where it's just like that segmentation of like different shot types or whatever really seems to happen only if there's like a significant amount of interest in the split in the first place. And so far it's mainly just been like auto fire on, auto fire off.
Definitely. But I think you could still do it on your own, etc. But it's true that everyone who wants to score in this game, what I've seen, uses this type because the difference is so big, and like I'd be interesting to see like a 4 million run with Arnold or whatever, but it'd be a bit childish too. I don't know how the framework button would work with like the different speed. That'd be interesting too. Yeah.
That would be interesting to someone work out the differences.
Yeah.
Really good to make it work. Because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
different pixels per frame. Like that could be significant enough of a difference to where you have to plan stuff out a little more methodically before getting in there, or checking to see if this is even possible.
Yeah. I've said it a few times before, but it'd be interesting if Exa and Trap make an arrange out of this. I don't think Shu likes the game too much. I think one time he said that it was pretty boring, at least on the first. And I kind of agree, like the first stages can be a bit boring if you're just surviving the time. But it's a game that I think would benefit from an Exa arrange.
Yeah, I was just saying before, before you got here, Prickly, but the game has pretty strong feedback. Like this boss, the Walker boss, like you can shoot the whole body, but you don't do damage, but you're obviously eating points.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think they definitely emphasize the scoring aspect here, but I'm kind of surprised they don't mention it like on the flyer at all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because
mean,
tick points is a big thing in some later shmups like Garega, Batrider, and even like some games like Pro Gear. Like if you take like the white, like I heard like the tick points is really. So it's something you see in other games. Sometimes not as much, but sometimes like, okay, which weapon gives the most tick points? And it's the first example of a game where I've seen where it's so upfront.
It seems like it's pretty well done too. I mean, I like a lot of those strategies.
Oh yeah, they're really interesting. And like if you look at stage 1, you have this line of wall that it's just meant to just shoot and get and get some points. So, and one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you talked about the lore a bit, like the story or
a little bit. I forgot all the specific details.
Yeah,
Yggdrasil's a supercomputer that's like attacking Earth, and the 3 fighters pilots you play
exactly.
from Earth.
Basically, there's a supercomputer that everyone's been expanding. So there's a supercomputer in the space station named Yggdrasil, which is basically rebelling itself. So it's very 2025 lore. And then they're sending Operation Ragnarok. But what I wanted to highlight was, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of enemies and bosses have this flashing core that seem to be like it's the main weak point. And I've always like to think that it's sort of interconnected with the computer. And
that makes sense, yeah.
Like the lore is really basic, really, but it's kind of like I kind of like it has that like those all enemies, they have this common shape.
Yeah,
and
it's
also
a common design tree.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look closely, you can look that some enemies were just the same sprites, but put in an entire different way, like the snakes and if you look at the snakes that's in stage 5, and like the walker and boss in stage 2, like this literally the same sprite. But sort of, so I thought it was a good recycling, like good way of recycling, of not making look too much the same while still being the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive, and I didn't know the scoring was that intense. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
That's super. That's super sophisticated for 94.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as Plasmo once put it, it's interesting to think of those NMK games that were very avant-garde, very ahead of their time in like some of the concepts. Like some of them didn't get used again, but some of them, like tick points, you could see lots of things like that,
Yeah.
Stage 1 Garega,
Yeah, it's like they're always willing to be experimental and just try out new ideas, even if it didn't succeed. And like ultimately, a lot of stuff inspired other developers over time with just some of the stuff they did. And then in some cases, like we have games that just are able to stand from their own artistic merits and then mechanical merits, which makes it very replayable. Like Thunder Dragon 2 especially, like when you see that game being played for like decades, where it's like a 7-year battle between 2 people to get the top spot in one piece.
Interesting.
I should look at like super competitive. Yeah.
I played a bit on my own, but I haven't looked too much at replays. But yeah, just learning to get enemies faster and unlocking other enemies and like the secret. Yeah, it's really good game. And it has this same like NMK wave design. Like you see in stage 6 in Ragnarok, where like every wave is like very, they sort of thought about it and give you to some interesting patterns.
Yep. Yeah, it's like all very segmented and like kind of designed to just kind of basically mix up different situations that you've been in and just like, how are you going to adapt to this?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and sorry again, very sorry for being late, but I'm sure you did fine with me. Maximo is much more knowledgeable than me at this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you could still make it. I did want to ask you about the Arcade Archives port. How's that?
Well, it's okay, but the mapping of the button is a bit complicated because it's old Arcade Archive, so you need to map A, B, C without really knowing what it does. So there's that, and there's the one thing I did not like, was the fact that you don't have the frame button. That'd be nice to include it. And also, like the auto fire, you have like low, medium, and high, but like you have no frequency. So actually, on what I noticed from my run is that the low gets you higher the tick points, at least on some weapon, unlike the wave weapon. The freeway. I mean, I didn't try for wave. So yeah, it's a good port, but I don't think it's as good as some archive which have some like nice features. Like if you take the Salamander port, like it allows you to have the normal shield. Like the shield, usually it gets depleted by power-ups. You have an option in Salamander not to activate it. Of course, you cannot submit to high score, like to high score mode with it, but it still has some bit of features, whereas Ragnarok is pretty much, you just have the auto fire and that's it. But I think it's all right.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that sounds like you mostly have. I mean, as long as you have some type of auto fire, you can still play it for score and explore it that way. But you're not going to be able to compete world record.
But it's something that would prevent me definitely from like doing frame button things, because I mean I could try it manually, but it's gonna be hard to really optimize it.
Right. Yeah.
And I definitely agree with EC. I think they should go back to like some of them. If you take like Gradius 2 port, like you cannot. There's like a background and like you cannot remove it. And I think that's just stupid. You should just have the game with black, black screen around it. So yeah, I really think they should because actually they have like support. Write us an email, etc. I wrote them an email, but I never got any answer. So yeah.
And nice.
Right.
Nice.
They have those like Arcade Archive 2 like variants as well for stuff.
Yeah,
so,
Ridge Racer
would be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The King of Fighters 98, I think, also is an ACA 2 release. So I guess it shows like it can be done. Maybe there just has to be enough interest. Yeah, like I think there was from Gradius 3, like they changed a bit of stuff. Like I think it's version 1.03 or something like that. But yeah, it's the only example I can think of. There's probably a few other, but it's the only one I can think of that got an update. Right.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap up here. If there's any other final words, feel free to chime in. But yeah, this has been a cool episode for 210. And thanks Prickly for making it, and Maximo for your knowledge, and glad we could do another one. Yep, and thanks people for coming to watch the stream as well. And we'll throw it up on the YouTube there in a couple days, and hopefully we'll get another episode maybe in a month or so.
Yeah, we shall see.
Cool. See you.
All right, later. Yep. So goodbye, everybody.
Yep. See you next game. Bye.
Yeah, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. My brain just.
Yeah,
all good.
I was a little.